Remember the massive rush to get enhanced driver's licenses earlier this year when the Real ID Act went into effect? Well, just how many people signed up, Sully?
Yeah, I decided to check back in with the numbers. In fact, I'm the only reporter to have checked in with the DOL. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I want to find out how many people decided went out and did that, because it was such a point of emphasis earlier this year. And we remember after 20 years of planning and years of delays, the Real ID took effect May 7th. That's the law that requires domestic airline passengers to have an ID that's accepted by the federal government to fly. Normal Washington driver's license doesn't qualify because the state doesn't require proof of citizenship to get one. So for the months leading up to the deadline, you could not find an appointment at the Department of Licensing. Wait times for walk-ins were in the 3 to 4 hour range, and people just trying to get their compliant enhanced IDs were really having trouble. In fact, I remember talking to Ursula. She couldn't get an appointment more than 2 months out as we got closer and closer to that deadline. At the start of 2025, only 26% of Washington's driver's licenses were enhanced. That number has grown by 6% just this year. It's now 32% of licenses are Real ID compliant. That's more than 500,000 people who updated their licenses this year or got their first license as an enhanced. April, the busiest month, as you would imagine, with about 90,000 people rushing out there to get their ID because the deadline was in May. May had just under 90,000. Demand has fallen off each month after the deadline. August was the lightest month for people trying to get these IDs since March. The DOL says people are no longer having trouble finding appointments, and walk-ins are kind of back to the normal whatever you need to do. I also checked with the TSA. Extra screening for non-compliant IDs is actually going pretty well. There hasn't been a rash of people missing their flights because of all the extra screening time, so that never really materialized. And 90% of the people going through SEA, otherwise known as Seattle International Airport, have a compliant ID.
CTAC.
Right.
CTAC Airport.
Exactly. Whether it's enhanced ID, passport, other government ID, the national average also about 90%. So it seems the transition has gone really well. But again, there's still no consequence if you don't have one, really. You're still allowed to fly. They're not kicking people out. But yeah, a lot of people did it, 500,000.
I think you can take credit because you warned everyone way in advance.
Yeah.
That's why it's going well.